Welcome back, guys. So in today's quick video, I want to show you guys how to turn a mess of cables into something a lot more neat and manageable, like this retractable USB cable that I got at the dollar store. Now, you are going to need one of these guys to take apart and sacrifice for this project. And the cable that I'm using is for the microphone that I'm actually using to record this video. So at some point, I'm going to have to unplug it, and I will show you guys how to install it into this guy so it's much more manageable. Of course, you can do any sort of cable you want, whether it's a microphone cable, headphone cables, or maybe your own USB cable that you want to make neat and tidy. And so with the microphone cable put aside, we're gonna focus on the USB cable that we need to take apart. And the first thing that you're gonna notice is that there's this label on top, and you can just peel that off, and it reveals the one screw that is holding everything together. So from there, we are just going to take this screw apart. It's a little Phillips head. Be sure to hold on to the sides and make sure nothing pops out and nothing falls out. And so we're going to safely put the little screw to the side. And now we're going to take the top off of this, and it should just snap off. Be careful to do this when you're doing this, and do it on a level surface. Don't tilt it like I was just doing, because when you take it off, you're going to want to hold everything in place. There's a spring, of course, that's providing spring tension. But if you look very, very carefully, there's actually a little tiny ball bearing here that we need to make sure that we do not lose. So I'm just going to grab a magnet, and I'm going to grab the ball bearing on the magnet. It's a little hard to see, but I'm going to put that aside so again we don't lose it. Maybe even stick the screw to the magnet as well. Okay, so the second step here is to remove this hub from the bottom piece with the spiral spring. Now, sometimes the spring will stay in the bottom of the hub, which you can see there, it's not in there anymore, because mine stayed with this bottom cover piece. And if that's the case, just be careful not to let it spring out everywhere. I just hooked one of the ends around the case itself to keep it from flying out, and we can put that off to the side. If it did come inside the bottom of the hub, that's fine too. Just make sure it doesn't go flying out either. And the next step is to turn this piece over and look at the bottom side of the hub, and we can unwind the cable. And just take note of how the cable inside is routed. So you can see it kind of goes in one side here, out the other side here, and it's shoved into this little cable holder piece here. And so if we extend this cable out, you're not going to be able to see the entire cable, but this hub should be pretty much exactly in the middle of the cable, so the halfway point. And so now I'm going to grab my new cable, I'm going to fold it in half, I'm going to find the halfway point right here, and I'm going to remove the existing cable from this assembly. I'm going to route the new cable at the halfway point, and I'm just going to shove it inside this hub. So it's going to be routed the exact same way. So you can see my new cable is inside the hub in the same manner that the old one was. And so this next step is probably the most frustrating. So after you get your wire back into place, you have to get your spring back into the center of your hub. Now the spring wants to naturally fly out, so you got to wind it up by hand and try and shove it in there really quickly before it comes flying back out. And take note of where the legs are. There's obviously one leg in the center, and the other leg with the wire in this position on top. This leg here is on the left-hand side, at least it is on mine. And so on yours, just make sure that when you take yours apart, before you let the spring go flying out, you don't want to flip the spring upside down, because then it'll want to wind in the opposite direction, and it's going to be very difficult for this thing to wind the wire up when you get it all back together, and then you have to repeat this frustrating step. So be sure you always put the spring back in the correct orientation. And with the spring back now in the correct orientation, we can take the bottom piece with this peg and the slit, and we can insert the center leg back through the middle of the slit, and it's going to look something like this. And at this point here, if you twist it in one direction, you can feel that there will definitely be a little bit of tension, and it wants to fly back the other way. And so we're going to wind this thing all the way back up by hand, and you definitely want to keep pressing down on the center of the hub so it doesn't come flying out. And the wires might be in the way a little bit, so hold them out of the way and just keep twisting this thing up until it pretty much won't twist anymore. And it's going to be quite a few turns. And so once you've reached the end, you can guide the wire back into the wire guides on both sides, here and here. And you're gonna wanna keep tension, keep pressing on this center hub, otherwise it's gonna go flying out of your hands. And then you're gonna carefully put that little ball bearing back into these funny looking grooves on top and put the top cover back on. So this is gonna require 2 hands, maybe even a third if you have somebody else around to help you. So I'm gonna do this off camera and I'll show you the results in a minute. All right, so with the screw back in place and the ball bearing inside, the wire is naturally going to want to spool up, which means that we've done this correctly. Of course, you're gonna want to extend it and make sure it clicks and holds in the extended position too. So it looks like I have reassembled this one correctly. Also, one thing to take note of is in the retracted state, if you have extra wire hanging out of the ends and the connectors aren't wound all the way up, it just means that the mechanism that you bought came with a much shorter wire than your headphones or your microphone, whatever it is that you're trying to wind up. And the spring just doesn't have enough length to it to accommodate the longer wire that you're trying to wind up. So when you go to buy one of these mechanisms to take apart, just take note of the wire length and try and match it to your headphones, microphone, whatever wire it is that you're trying to wind up. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please leave a comment or a like down below, and please subscribe to my channel.